Hello there. Welcome to the podcast called Create a Life You're Obsessed with. I am your host, Mandy Tardiff. Wow, this is going to be a really good one. I cannot wait to share this very true story. In some ways, I'm like, oh God, I can't believe I'm going to share this story, but I am because I do feel like there are probably a lot of women right now on this planet going through a very similar thing that I just went through, or they're about to go through a similar thing, or they need to go through a similar thing. And me just sharing it openly is maybe going to give them the permission to do what I just did, or just kind of validate their feelings. And before I launch into that, I just want to say that this is not the first podcast that I've ever created. I've created so many podcasts. I've launched so many coaching businesses. It's almost like infuriating and sometimes even embarrassing. But I can see that there's just been so much that I've had to sift through and sort out, all kinds of layers of like shame and religious programming and all of that stuff. And just kind of come to this place where I am today where I just am sick and tired. I'm sick and tired of all the bullshit. Honestly, I'm just tired of all the bullshit. And this is a podcast and I'm not going to edit it. I'm not going to put a little fancy little jingle in the beginning. I'm not going to make it perfect. I'm just going to talk into my phone while I'm laying on the couch right now in my bathing suit in Hawaii, where it's like 90 degrees right now, and I'm so hot. And I'm sitting here reading Amanda Francis's new book called Holy Fuck. And I am seriously like, holy fuck, this book is amazing. I'm only 21 pages in. And I just wanted to start a podcast, a place where I could just dump my ideas, my thoughts, and if anybody stumbles upon them and finds any kind of inspiration, motivation, permission, anything good, then awesome. I get to just speak authentically, unabashedly, and I don't have to censor myself, which is something that I've been doing my entire life, and I'm done. So that brings me to last night. Okay, let me just give you a little context before we just talk about what happened last night. So I met this guy, and the backstory is that it wasn't like he was a stranger, although he kind of is a stranger. I knew about this person in high school. He was older than me, and we never hung out. As much as I knew, like he was a stranger, right? Like I didn't hang out with him. We never even said hi to each other. He was older than me, but I knew that he existed, I guess you could say, in the world. We also went to the same college. But again, just because we go to the same college does not mean that we ever hang out or anything. I didn't know him, and that was that. Okay. I know about this guy. He's from my hometown. We went to the same college. I also did briefly date his best friend. And even though I was dating his best friend in high school and some part of college, I still don't recall ever hanging out with him or even having a conversation with him. There we go. That's the background. Now, that was when I was, like 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Many years go by, okay? I'm now 50, and this person reaches out to me on Facebook. We have a little text exchange. He said he saw some of my posts and he was inspired, I guess you could say, by some of my posts. So we started to text a little bit back and forth. Then we actually ended up talking on the phone, and we had a lot to talk about, college and the place where we grew up. So there was already some like familiarity there. There was already some feeling of home, I guess you could say, which just felt good in my nervous system. And come to find out, he was still living in the same state where we both grew up. And that was about it. So we ended up talking a little bit on the phone, back and forth, not much. I was like, I wonder where this is going. What's his intentions? And then there was this one day where we had, you could say, a sexy conversation. Wasn't FaceTime. It was just a bit of a sexy conversation. And I woke up the next morning thinking, I don't really want to do that. That tends to be a pattern of mine to, or I want to say a pattern that I used to fall back on when I don't know what the context of the relationship is. And before I even know the guy, before there's even any kind of a commitment, or before he's even really pursued me, like I already would kind of bring the relationship to like a sexual place. And I was trying to practice not doing that. Right. So I gave myself some grace and I was really light about it. And I messaged him the next day just saying, like, hey, I don't, I take full ownership of, the context of our conversation yesterday, but I kind of want to put on the brakes, and then I never heard from him again. Yep. Didn't hear from him again. And I sat with that for a bit and I was like, wow, okay, I've been here before. And the old pattern would be to reach out, to text, to, just try to figure out what happened. And I was like, nah, I'm not going to do that. It was Valentine's Day was like a few days later. And I was like, just out of being, I don't know, the old good girl Mandy, being the good girl Mandy, the Christian nice thing to do would be to say happy Valentine's Day. So I said, hey, I hope you have a happy Valentine's Day. All things considering, I hope you're surrounded by a lot of love today. That's it. That was like, I felt like that was kind of like my closure text, I guess. And yes, there was a part of me, I guess, that was like, I wonder if he will text me back. Like, did this guy like actually just ghost me? And yeah, he did. He completely ghosted me. I never heard from him again, although that's not true. 2 months later, to the date, February 14th, right? That's Valentine's Day. So then it was March 14th, and then it was April 14th, right? February, March, April. Yeah, 2 months go by. April 14th, 2 months to the day on Valentine's Day that I texted him that, I get a text message from him. And he goes, I'm so sorry. I actually checked myself into rehab and I didn't have my phone and I felt like I should have texted you, but I didn't, blah, blah, blah. How are you? And you know, looking back, sometimes you're like, God, if I knew what I know now, I would have done things differently, right? But whatever, coulda, shoulda, woulda. This is what I did. I looked at that text, and because I have been in recovery, or I had been in the rooms of recovery for so many years, because I understand addiction, because I understand 12-step, all this stuff, I had this just giant ocean of empathy and understanding, and it pulled me in, I guess you could say. And I was at that point, I held no resentment against him. I wasn't like pining for him. I was just like, well, I'm glad he freaking resurfaced. Like, I'm glad he actually circled back around and, he didn't die or whatever. And I reached back out to him and I said, hey, thanks so much for the message. I did wonder what was wrong with you, or I wondered if what happened to you, I guess I could say. I think that's what I said. I wonder what happened to you. And I'm glad you're doing good. Like, that's cool that you're in recovery. Are you okay? Blah, blah, blah. So he's like, I'd love to talk on the phone. So I got on the phone with him. We had a super long conversation. And what I can see now so clearly was that I immediately shifted into the gear of over functioning Mandy, of coach Mandy, teacher Mandy. I'm going to be supportive Mandy. I'm going to just hold space for you, Mandy. And that is a familiar place for me. And that's what I did. I held space for him. It made me feel like I had purpose. It made me feel good. But when we're talking about relationships with men and women, and we're talking about if you want a relationship, if you want a romantic relationship with a masculine man and you're a feminine woman and you want the polarity, you really should not start a relationship with, I'm the mother, I'm the supporter, I'm the encourager, I'm the nurturer, I'm the one that's leading the relationship, I'm the stronger one spiritually, emotionally, whatever. Anyway, and that is just a place that I have operated from for so long that sometimes I didn't even know I was doing it. It's kind of like, does a fish know that it's in water? Does it know until it's out of the water that, like, oh wow, now I'm not in water. I didn't even realize I was in the water. I wasn't even aware. I wasn't even thinking about it. I was just in the water. So that's what happened. And after that, we talked and we talked, but something always felt off to me. Like, and it started to grow more and more every day. I could feel it in my body. And then we ended up FaceTiming because I was like, I got to FaceTime this motherfucker because, what does he look like? I recall what he looks like when we were in high school, but does he look the same? Has he gained like a ton of weight? Does he look horrible? I don't know. So we FaceTimes, and I remember this is the hardest thing to like navigate, or at least it's been the hard thing for me to navigate thus far, is that I had some level of attraction. There was some, but there was also another level in my body of like disappointment. Kind of like, I'm not super excited about what he looks like, but I could be excited. And it's like a lack mentality, and it's like a scarcity mentality of, okay, well, he's not exactly what I'd want, but like I could work with this. I could do this. And so it's like I can intellectually plead a case for why I should override my initial feeling, or my very first initial sacral feeling of how I feel about this guy, and just like, no, it's okay. You don't have to be that attracted to him. Look at all these other reasons why you should make this work. Maybe this is from God, and maybe you'll fall in love with him. You'll end up liking him, because people say all the time that you can end up becoming attracted to somebody. And so there's all this mental gymnastics that happened. And I overrode my system, my body's reaction, my body's impulses in favor of, well, I mean, it's been a long time since a man has given you any kind of attention like this. He really likes you, so just see where this is going. And it was a little bit intoxicating because he seemed to be really, really into me and seems to be very clear about how he felt about me, especially after we FaceTimed. And so we ended up FaceTiming a few more times, and every time, and I'm going to say every single time that I would end up FaceTiming with him, there would be this like initial kind of like repulsion in my body. And part of that was because I noticed that it seemed like he had gained like a lot of weight, which can often happen when you're in the early stages of recovery. And every time I talked to him, he was always laying down. He was just always in his room by himself, laying down in such a way that was very unflattering. And some people might say, wow, you're really superficial. And yeah, maybe I am superficial, but I probably need to be a little bit erring on the side of superficial, because I would say the majority of my life, I have not listened to my body signals, and I have forced myself on some level, pressured myself on some level to intellectualize why I should find a reason to be with a guy, instead of it just being a primal, instinctual desire that I just think a guy's good looking. Because what my pattern had been still I'm trying to get out of this pattern, is if I find a man extremely attractive, I reject that feeling, I reject that desire, I get terrified, I instantaneously say that desire is not okay, it's not of God, it's something that will take me over, abort. Don't let the guy that you find attractive know that you find him attractive, because what will happen is he'll probably more than likely reject you. And so let's do a whole rejection thing before it even happens. And then that reinforces the decades-long belief that good-looking men just don't like me. And it doesn't help that whenever I'm in the presence of a very good-looking man that I actually find extremely attractive, that my body responds to instantaneously without me even trying, I would give them resting bitch face, or I would almost make it so apparent that I don't like them, that I'm not giving them any energy or any kind of indication that I even find them attractive. If anything, I'm setting off an opposite signal, and then it reinforces the narrative and the belief that, again, good-looking men never like me, I'll never get a good-looking man. And so I just continued to do this thing with my body, which is like push down my intuition, override that primal feeling of desire or not desire, and just write a script on top of that. Like, we need to like this guy because he likes us, yada, yada, yada. And every single time I got on FaceTime with this guy, I felt like on many levels, I was trying to force attraction with him, and his intoxicating words toward me. And mind you, he's in early recovery. He was just getting sober. He was in his very first stages of recovery. And I knew on so many levels that that was a really stupid thing, a really foolish thing for me to even think that it would be a good idea to start talking to a man who, by the way, lived 5,000 miles away because I live in Hawaii and he lived in New England, and he had no money, no job, no car, and no ability to take me on any kind of a proper date, and wasn't going to be able to do that for quite some time. And so I just kept being attached to potential, attached to unavailability. And I was very, very clearly aware of this. I had been aware of this kind of pattern for a long time. I was trying to step out of it more and more, and I was stepping out of it. But sometimes these old patterns and these habits and these subconscious beliefs and these things, they're hard to die off. They're like a cockroach. I live in Hawaii, and sometimes if you're trying to kill a cockroach, that sucker just like will not die. How much Raid you spray at it or how many freaking times you beat it with a broom, it's just not going to die. And so this was yet again another experience for me I broke it off with him so many times as kindly as I could, and and finally, let's just get to the point of what happened last night, okay? Because that's the part that's important. What happened was the very last time that I talked to him. Now, I had communicated to him on a number of times, whether through the phone, on FaceTime, through text, because I think it's so much better to actually say something in person, or at least on the phone live. I feel like these things should not be communicated on text messages, but it all depends on the level of your relationship, your dynamic. But like, I told him that I think that we need to part ways. I think that he needs to just at least get a year of sobriety, focus on his recovery and God, and I'm going to go on my merry way. And if, one day we end up meeting together in real life, great. We'll see where it goes from there. But what happened is like a once in a while, when we did this kind of thing and broke it off, one of us would reach out to each other. Maybe it was like 3 weeks later or a month later, and just be like, hey, how's it going? Been thinking about you, whatever, right? So that happened. And we jumped on a FaceTime real fast. And the very second I saw him on FaceTime, my whole body was just like, no. I could feel it. And this time I did something different. Rather than shape-shifting into, oh, I need to be a woman that doesn't want so much, or I need to like realize that, he's kind of good looking and at least he's emotionally available, and, at least he's whatever, all these things. I held my standard, I held my boundary, and I was just very honest. And I didn't say, hey, I don't find you attractive, but I just didn't want to be on the phone with him. I just really didn't. And there had been so many times where we would be on the phone for like 2 to 3 hours on FaceTime. And I realized that I was the one that was carrying the conversation. I was the one that, if I wasn't talking, the conversation would have just fallen flat. There would have been no one talking. And when I finally realized that both I didn't have an attraction for him and that I was the one carrying the conversation, when I finally honored both of those things, and I, A, stopped trying to force attraction, and B, stopped doing all the talking, I realized that there was silence on the phone. There was just silence. He felt it. I felt it. He started fixing his hair and he was like, is everything okay? And I was like, yeah, everything's fine. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to head out. I'm going to head. I have a lot I want to do today. And he was like, oh, okay. Did I do anything wrong? And I was like, no, I just want to, do some stuff. And we were only on the phone for maybe like 5 minutes, which was very different. And that was hard for me. Breaking a pattern is hard. Breaking a pattern is not easy. It's going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to feel wrong in the beginning until it starts feeling right. So we got off the phone, and later on that evening, like way later on, like 3 o'clock in the morning, his time, he texted me and said, hey, sexy. I saw that. I just didn't feel pulled in. I didn't feel like texting him back. And so I didn't. Then several hours went by, almost like a whole entire 24 hours went by. He texted me again. Hey, did I do anything wrong? And that's when I was like, you know what? I need to tell him the truth. Now, I'm not going to tell him. I don't think that we have to be brutally honest. I don't think we have to say things that are going to be like really hurtful. But I was like, I got to say something in a way that just nips this in the bud. I can't keep doing this dance back and forth to myself. And so I sent him a text message and I just said basically like, I realized when I was on FaceTime the other day with you, I said, I started off by saying, look, you didn't do anything wrong. No, you didn't. You did nothing wrong. I realized on FaceTime the other day with you that I just don't feel it. I don't feel the kind of excitement, the kind of attraction, the kind of connection that I want to feel when it comes to pursuing a relationship. And it's really hard for me to say this to you. And I really do recognize that you're an amazing person. And I recognize that like you're special and I care about you and I care about your recovery and I want the best for you, but I just don't feel it. And that's my honest truth. And I realized that the other day, and I have to communicate this to you. And I really believe we have to go our separate ways. And wow. And I sent that text and he immediately sent me a text back and he said, well, I can see why you've never been in a real relationship. It's very obvious. You're really missing out. And best of luck to you. I'm completely deleting you from my life. And I looked at that and wow, I was like, ouch, that hurts, because basically he just hit me in my Achilles tendon. He hit me in the place that hurt the most, which was, I can see why you've never been in a real relationship. And I have been in relationships. I've been in relationships with a lot of people. I have the most amazing and healthy, unbelievable relationships with my family, with my friendships, with my employers, my former employers, my employees, my co-workers, my clients. Like I have the most rich, juicy relationships. My housemate's dog, a romantic relationship, that has been a struggle with me. Why? Because it has been a journey to have the best relationship with myself. And when that's healing, it's been healing so much. And one of the signs to me that I do have an ability to have good relationships, and I do have good relationships, and I can have a healthy romantic relationship, is because I have such a good relationship with myself now, and I'm not in a shitty relationship. I'm not in a situationship. And I wish I would have navigated this thing with this guy a little bit differently, like shut it down a lot sooner, listen to my gut a lot sooner. But sometimes these things are tricky because he had a lot of qualities, or I would say he seemed to have a lot of qualities. This is why long distance is very difficult. When you don't actually get to see them day to day, you don't actually know what's really going on with them. You only see bits and pieces. Your brain will fill in the pieces with what you want them to be and their potential. And I have had a pattern of really looking too much at a guy's potential rather than who he is right now, and assessing whether or not he's the right guy for me right now, who he is right now, not what he could possibly be. And my mind was kind of attaching to a lot of what he could possibly be or what he used to be. And so he sent that text. It was sharp and it was really interesting because I was at that moment in Waikiki. I live in Hawaii, and the sun was setting, and I was like, I'm just going to sit here at the beach and I am going to watch the sunset, and I am going to not let this take me down. In fact, I'm just going to breathe. I'm going to be in this moment. I'm going to be thankful, and I'm just going to take my, my grief and all of this to God. And all of a sudden this guy comes over to me and he pretty much says, "You're so beautiful. Can I have your number?" At that moment, I was like, wow, this is crazy. Then a guy called me, a guy from my past, and he happened to be in Waikiki, and he's like, "I can meet up with you in 10 minutes. And so we met up, and the guy that wanted my number, I didn't actually find him attractive. And I was so proud of myself because I was like, you know what? This is proof that I just broke this pattern. I'm breaking this pattern in real time. It's integrating inside of me, and I'm becoming an embodied woman who can communicate honestly, who can trust her gut. And although it felt really good, right after I had this text exchange with this guy, that another guy came over and asked me for my number, I didn't find that new guy attractive. And instead of being the polite girl, the nice girl, the kind girl, or like not wanting to hurt his feelings, I was just honest. I didn't have to make up any narrative or story about myself or about him. All I did was just operate from, I don't want to give this man my number and I'm not obligated to. So in a very kind way, I said, It's beautiful that you actually came up to me. Most men don't do that, especially this day and age. They don't just come up to a girl and ask them out, but you did. So I commend you for that. That's courageous. Keep doing that. I'm not, however, going to give you my number because I'm just not interested. And then this other guy called me and I said, I'm going to go meet up with this other guy. And so I did meet up with this other guy. I had a crush on this other guy for a long time. This other guy that I met up with, I knew, I was like, okay, I haven't seen this guy in a while. I've had a crush on him. Nothing went anywhere. I am just going to keep my eyes wide open with this other guy. So we met up. I saw him. He proceeded to basically talk about himself. He didn't really ask me any questions about myself. He was acting like a big doofus. And he basically had said that he had the opportunity to take me to Japan. And it sounded like he just wanted to kind of go as friends, as a buddy. And I was like, look, I appreciate the offer. I really do. I've never been to Japan. I really would love to travel. I have a passport and I have never used it. And I am going to say, however, that where I'm at in my life is that I want to be with a man who wants to court me, who wants to pursue me. And I'm going to make myself available for a man that's very clear that he wants to pursue something with me and he wants to invest and he wants to take me to Japan because he wants to get to know me and date me. That's what he's thinking. And if you just want to take me as a buddy, as a travel buddy, then I'm not interested, because there could possibly be a man that is in the restaurant that is looking at me and is attracted to me, but I'm with you and you're actually unavailable, and I'm making myself available to you when I could be making myself available to a man who's already available. So I'm going to take, if that's where you're at, if you want me to just be your travel buddy, that's fine. I'm not going to try to change you. I don't want to change you. And that's great. Thank you for being honest with me, but that's just not what I'm interested in. And it was great for me to be able to eloquently and articulately communicate that. And that felt so good. That was something that I just never done before. I was never someone in the past who was able to do these things in person, in the moment. I might be able to practice, I was able to practice many times before, over a text message, but to be able to do it right then and there in front of a guy. And this is a guy I'd had a crush on before. I find him attractive, but I'm not willing to shrink myself down to what I think I'm able to have, because my brain can't even imagine the scope of what God has for me, that it's beyond what I can ask, think, or even imagine. And so I'm not going to be available for these things anymore. And I'm so grateful that happened. Although it wasn't the easiest thing to walk through, it's never easy to get to know someone and try to discern whether or not you want to be with them and you're confused. But hopefully this story makes some sense, or is something that you can maybe see yourself in, or you can relate to, that gives you the permission or gives you the courage to end something that just really, and you've known all along in your gut, in your pussy, in your body, in your intuition, that you're on some level trying to force something. And I'm here to tell you that God wants to give you more than you can ask, think, or imagine. So imagine what it is that you really want. What do you want to feel? You want to feel free. You want to feel authentic. You want to feel like you're alive. Your life force energy is completely turned on. You're in pleasure. You're supported. You're adored. You're not forcing yourself on any level to be anywhere, at a job, in a relationship, in a career, or anything. That everything that you have in your life, you would choose it 10 times over and over and over and over again, even though nothing in this world is perfect. That job's not perfect. Even the job that's the best job in the world that you created, and you have this just amazing career, whatever it is that you made up, that's not going to be perfect. There's going to be days where you're just going to show up to your job, but you would choose that over and over because it's you have your life force energy in it. It's something that you want to do at the end of the day. It makes you feel alive. It's authentic. It's aligned. And that's the kind of life that we can have in every single area of our life. Money, business, relationships, family, our romantic partnership, everything. And for me, I have all those things right now. I have the most amazing life. It's a beautiful, beautiful life. I mean, my living situation, I'm living in my dream home. I'm living right next to the ocean in my dream town that I've been dreaming about for so long. I have my dream career. I have dream friendships. I have a dream roommate. I live with a dream dog. I love my life. I love my life. The only thing that is missing in my life is a aligned partnership. But when I become aligned to myself and I start honoring myself unabashedly and boldly asking for what I want, boldly believing that I can have what I want, boldly communicating with honesty, authenticity, grace, truth, with love, with respect, you can have both respect and truth and love and grace all in the same thing. You can communicate some things that are difficult, but you can do it in such a way that is soft and loving and doesn't come across condemning or judgmental. There is a way to do this 100% over, 10 times over. And the more that we're able to do that and really respect ourselves and our choices and our desires and our dreams and our body and our intuition and really be locked in and connected to all parts of ourselves, that's when I feel like we can welcome in the most juiciest everything, the most juiciest partnership, the most juiciest roommate, the most juiciest soulmate friendships, the most amazing job, the most amazing career, the most amazing way in which you can easily, authentically, and almost effortlessly make tons of money and be able to communicate who you are and be able to be seen and known and adored and just be yourself. And that's going to come with people both appreciating you, loving you, and people absolutely fucking hating you. And all of it's okay. All of it is okay, because when you finally have arrived back home to yourself fully, it doesn't matter who hates you, because you've finally stopped hating yourself. You've finally stopped trying to win over everybody and have everybody love you. And you're just like, I don't care. Let the haters hate me. I finally love myself. I finally have come back home to myself. So I'm so grateful that this relationship ended yesterday and that everything transpired the way that it did. And then what happened with this other guy that I ended up meeting up with, we sat in Waikiki for a while. We talked, and I basically told him what I had said, right? That my truth was that I would have loved to go to Japan with him, but not under those circumstances, and that's okay. And I felt like he kind of got a little bit more attracted to me in that moment. And, but again, there was nothing for me to do. There's just nothing for me to do in that moment. And so we parted ways. I said goodnight. I gave him a hug. I said, thanks for meeting up with me. And then he went off and he said, if you want to have dinner with me, then give me a call. And I got in my car thinking, I'm not calling you. If I want to have dinner, he's going to have to call me. And then I just went home, and I ended up just singing a bunch of worship songs on my way home because I wanted to. And then I went to bed, and it was a great, beautiful day. And I'm so grateful that I get to keep growing, and I'm grateful for this journey of life. And I hope that this has, helped you maybe in some way. And if it has, I'd love to hear from you. All right. Thanks for listening. Stay tuned for the next podcast. Bye.